Ah, the GO train. Today it's Toronto's regional rail system, serving 250,000 people every day, with a wide variety of services stretching all around the region. Today it's a well-funded service, seen as a critical link in Toronto's transportation network, but it hasn't always been this way. GO's system has its roots in the decline of privately owned passenger rail. In the late 1950s, commuter rail services were performed by private railways like Canadian National and Canadian Pacific, providing rush hour services into downtown Toronto. Why did this change? Well, it's a North American story as old as time. Pawn the struggling passenger services into publicly owned hands. The Government of Ontario Transit Crown Corporation, or just GO Transit, was started as a single corridor with only 86 million of today's Canadian rubles, which, with the billions we're spending on GO expansion, the Ontario Line, O-Train Stage 2, kind of makes a fella wonder, could the model of GO be expanded to other places in Ontario? In GO's charter, there is nothing specifying that it's exclusive to the GTHA, and back in the late 60s when GO was formed, the area's population was only around 2.2 million, which in 2024 is pretty similar to Ontario's other little big city, the Feds, the city that definitely sleeps, Ottawa. Now, Ottawa is no Toronto, but there is definitely a similar level of downtown-focused jobs, and Ottawa's transit provider, OC Transpo, work with private coach bus companies to provide commuter bus services to smaller towns and municipalities outside of Ottawa's urban area. Ottawa once had a very strong rural commuter bus network, but post-COVID, many bus operators were either bought out or went under, and that left many of its riders forced to drive, if they had the means to even afford a vehicle. But given the fact that rural buses still operate, and such services are generally well used, it's clear there's still demand for those kinds of rural services, and they really deserve an upgrade. I'd argue that Ottawa today is of the size where there needs to be some serious provincial investment in its transit system. In this video, I will lay out a fantasy but still very achievable GO train network for Ottawa. Before we can dig into where the lines might go and who they might serve, we need to get our bearings of the Ottawa Valley and its infrastructure. This is Ottawa. In the 1960s, Ottawa's Central Railway Station was relocated to its current location
at Riverside and Industrial
in the train yards neighborhood. Ottawa Station currently has 4 tracks, serving exclusively Via's corridor services. There is excess capacity in the station to serve more trains than just Via's, and it's a walkable connection to the Confederation line. For those reasons, I think it would be a great fit as Ottawa's Union Station for its GO services. In terms of rights of way, the lines highlighted on the map in yellow are currently under the ownership of Via Rail. Their infrastructure west of Ottawa stretches all the way to Canadian Pacific's main line in Smiths Falls and the Canadian National main line in Brockville, as well as eastwards to Coteau and Des Bourgeois, Quebec, where it interchanges with both Canadian National and Canadian Pacific. This rail yard is Canadian National Walkley Yard, where a small number of freight trains are operated out of, as well as being the yard for OC Transpo's Lines 2 and 4. The line highlighted in blue is special. It is a surviving freight spur that serves weekly freight trains to and from the town of Arnprior. The City of Ottawa owns the right-of-way, and Nylene Canada, a nylon producer that has a facility in Arnprior, currently on the tracks, and they contract Canadian National to operate their weekly freight service. Nylene has also expressed that they would like to see some kind of public transit using their tracks, as they are currently quite underused and go through some dense areas of West Ottawa.
And for Anne's Ruth, the opportunities for this corridor are endless.
Continue to leverage it and possibly in the future potentially even connect up to the LRT in Ottawa. Why not?
My proposal for an Ottawa GO train service would include 2 lines, the Arnprior and Alexandria line and the Castleman and Smiths Falls line. Both of these proposed services would be utilizing existing rails and rights of way, though adding passing tracks, sections of double track, and track speed upgrades would increase the potential speed and frequency of trains using the lines. Since transit funding is quite hard to come by, my proposal would include very minimal stations, with likely only a single, high-level platform with stairs and ramps for access, a small shelter with a departures board, similar to the proposed design for the new Northlander stations. This will minimize the amount of construction work needed to get this service running. The Arnprior and Alexandria line will begin in its namesake Arnprior, which is roughly an hour's drive from Ottawa, about 50 kilometers as the geese fly from the city centre. Following Nylene's right-of-way, the line will pass through the towns of Goleta, Kinburn, and Carp, before hitting the more developed areas of Ottawa, starting with the job centre of Canada North, continuing through the Greenbelt to Bells Corners and Nepean, before switching back onto the approach to Ottawa Station, just short of the Rideau River, before crossing O-Train Line 2 with a fancy new grade separation, paralleling via trains into Ottawa Station. Stop placement in the rural areas is simple, just place it where the people are, but in built-up areas, it can be tricky. Canada North is easy. There's plenty of space where the tracks currently cross March Road. Due to the tracks in Bell's Corners mostly passing north of the development, the best spot will likely be on these vacant parcels, as it will be the best spot to maximize the walk shed. For Nepean, the ideal spot would be either just east or just west of Woodruff Avenue, which is currently a BRT corridor, which would leverage some very strong bus connections. Riverside is in a similar situation to Bell's Corners. The best place, in my opinion, would be placing the station just west of Prince of Wales Drive, short of the current Federal Junction, where Nileen Spur to Arnprior meets the approach into Ottawa Station and Walkley Yard. This point, which used to be a railway diamond, is where the approach to Ottawa Station, as well as the tracks owned by OC Transpo for Line 2, cross each other. Relocating, or at least adding a walkway between, the current Mooney's Bay Station and a potential GO station would make it a key transfer point for people trying to get both north towards the Lilley and Bayview, as well as south towards South Keys and Greenboro. Having an easy transfer here will be convenient, well used, and make great use of the new grade separation. Much in the way of Lakeshore West and Lakeshore East in Toronto, I believe that after serving their central station, these lines should be through Wren with service in both directions for most of the day on an hourly or better schedule. Both of my proposed lines, the Arnprior and Alexandria line, as well as the Smiths Falls line, would continue eastwards past Ottawa Station on existing, high-quality via trackage. Today, these tracks cut through the towns of Carlsbad Springs, Vars, Limoges, and Castleman. The key stops along this portion of the line will be Vars, and particularly Castleman, as they are the larger towns that the railway passes through, as well as Castleman having an existing Via Rail station served on select corridor services. Stations could be placed in Carlsbad and Limoges, depending on the ridership. An option that I believe would be worth exploring would be a limited service extension to Alexandria. Alexandria is also served by Via Rail and select corridor services, and is of similar size to Castleman. My second proposed line would be the Castleman to Smiths Falls line. From the east, it would follow the Arnprior and Alexandria line into Ottawa Station, serve both Mooney's Bay and Riverside stops along the Rideau River, and instead of switching onto Nileen's right-of-way towards Arnprior, it would continue to follow existing Via trackage towards Smiths Falls. The key stops here would include Via's existing Fallowfield Station, a new station in the west of Barhaven, town of Richmond, and finally serving Via's station in Smiths Falls. Another potential extension option that could be explored would be using Canadian Pacific's main line to extend the service to Perth. In terms of rolling stock, my train of choice would be using the same DMUs that are currently used on Line 2, Stadler Flirts. Flirts have proven themselves to be reliable throughout the winter, have the option of potential electrification in the future, high speed with track upgrades to support it, as well as the existing yard and maintenance facilities for such vehicles. Should the ridership support it, there's also the Flirt's bi-level cousin, the KISS. I love Stadler's naming scheme. The reason why I'm so bullish on repurposing old and underused railway corridors is because Ottawa has actually done it before. In 2001, Ottawa opened its original O-train service on disused Canadian Pacific trackage. Compared to what we spend on transit today, the original O-train was a steal, costing only $34 million of today's dollars for a 5-station, 8-kilometer urban line. And in terms of city, provincial, and federal spending, that's pocket change. After the line had proven itself, serving 1 million passengers in just 8 months, in 2011, the city embarked on a $78 million improvement project for the line, which saw the frequency of trains doubled, new sections of passing track, and improvements to the signaling system, as well as 6 new train sets. Once again, Line 2 is closed for even more upgrades, significantly expanded double tracking, new train sets, and 11 new stations over 16 kilometers of track. Cities around the world and within Canada have shown that if you position public transit, and particularly railways, as a critical link from rural to suburb to city and back, they will be well used and therefore well funded. This plan, as well as the success stories of both GO Transit in the 60s and Ottawa itself in the early 2000s and 2010s, show that the best way to get the most transit for the least money is often right under our noses. And if you've already scored twice, why not make it a hat trick? Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. This was made for Classy Rail's One Line More contest, and it took me about 3 weeks to make. Any footage that wasn't my own will be linked down in the description below, and there's definitely more videos coming in the new year, so you can press that button if you want to see them. Happy holidays, and see you in the new year.